I scraped every question people in tech are asking about ditching their underpaid perm job and breaking into the magical world of consulting. Today I'm giving real answers, not fluff, based on 12 years in cyber consulting and scaling to 52k a month solo. This is the second video in a series, so let's get into it. Question 1. Is moonlighting legal? Yes, in lots of places, if not most places. The thing is that you need to keep in mind that most of your employers might have something in the contract that prohibits you from doing this, or there might be a clause in there that states that you can do it, but the work needs to be in an entirely different field. So I would always research this before I go out into the wild. Again, it's going to vary between state and region. Some countries even only allow you to work up to like 48 hours a week. So you need to check that as well, in which case you would probably need to do something like work remotely or something like that to kind of bypass the 48-hour rule. But again, can they really check how much you worked? I suppose when it comes down to taxes and things like that, they probably could. The point being, you need to check your region, but in most cases in developed world, you can moonlight because stuff's really expensive. Question 2. What if consulting doesn't work out? Well, then all you have to do is go back to whatever you were doing before. You've got to think about it like this. If you are doing a job now and getting paid to do this job, you have this kind of stability going, and then you branch out into the real world, and because you followed me and everything that I tell you to do, you start a flourishing consulting business, but somewhere down the line, it turns out that it's not really for you and you don't want to do it. So you decide that you want to go back. What would you do? Would you just go to the street and say, I can't do this anymore? Or would you just go and find a permanent job again? You've got to look at it this way. You found a job the first time, maybe even the second and third time, however many jobs you've had in your lifetime so far. The point being is that you've already done the thing that you're afraid of having to come back to. So it's not really that scary. If the consulting thing doesn't work, just go back to doing whatever you're doing, which might be an okay paid job right now. And by then you might have more experience or more understanding of how to frame your experience even better, in which case you might be able to get an even higher paying perm job in the end, if consulting turns out to not be for you. So you really shouldn't frame it as like this end all where you're going to end up on the street. I think a lot of the time that's what we do, because we think if we fail or if something doesn't work out, it cascades down into this worst case scenario where everyone leaves you and you're totally alone and you end up dying on the street. So keep that in mind when you're taking risks or when you're doing these things. There are tons of different ways to do something without having to take on massive amounts of risk. But even if the thing doesn't work out in the end, you can always just go back to wherever it was that you were. And you'll have a new mindset to attach to that, so you'll be even better at it than the first time. Question 3. How do I handle sales calls when I'm not a salesperson? Firstly, everything in life is sales. So if you've ever done anything that got you a friend, a job, a person, a significant other, whatever, you've successfully sold yourself. So when people say that I'm not a good salesperson, if I look around them and I see they have friends and a family and whatever else in life, it means that they have sold themselves at some point effectively. So the way you look at a sales call is not that you're going on this call to sell to a whole bunch of strangers, immediately pushing stuff down their throat. That's not how it works. It's more of a discovery call. You're just going there to find out things about one another. And the best thing that you can do is listen. If you think about it from the perspective of a doctor, when you go into a doctor's room, a good doctor this is, they'll sit down and listen to you. They'll let you talk about your things to find out, is it stress causing this? Is it a biological problem? Is it a mechanical problem? Rather than just trying to give you some Prozac and Xanax and all of that shit that they try and shove down your throat if they're a bad doctor. The point being that the sales call works exactly the same way. The more that you listen, the more you understand what the pain points of the end client is. And it really is that simple, because they will talk. You ask the right follow-up questions and they'll reveal more and more to you. And the more that they speak, the more talking points you have to provide them some value on that call. And once you provide them that value, that means that you can start working towards closing the framework once you've revealed that you're actually really good at the thing that you do. You're not trying to push anything on them, and you're showing them that you can get them to the outcome that they want. And that's really at a high level what a sales call is all about. So don't feel like you need to go in there like some insurance salesman knocking on doors with a briefcase and a sagging tie. That's not what it is. It's literally just two people trying to figure out who they are and you listening. Listening is the best thing that you can do, and take it from there. Question 4. How do I find my rate in 2025? I'm guessing this person's talking about a day rate, so we'll go with that. And obviously it depends on the skill level that you are at right now. So I'm going to look at all of the things that I have in my favor. Do I have any certs? Do I have any experience? How long have I been doing this? Where am I currently located? Things like that. Because obviously to some degree, the market dictates what you can get paid. It doesn't mean that is the only rate you get paid. It just gives us a baseline to kind of start to see how we can manipulate perception to get more things out of that day rate. So if I'm starting out and I don't really have much experience at all, I know, cool, I'm going to be towards the lower end of this scale. And when I get to the lower end of the scale, Let's say it's 550. I'm not going to go in there with 550 at the lowest rate. I'm going to add about 20% to bring me up to like 620 a day or something like that. Once I've gotten to my 620 day rate based on my percentage of adding to whatever the lowest number is, then I'm going to look at all the things in my favor, like I just mentioned. So if I do have a whole bunch of certs, if I am in really high demand, if I am working in a city where the rates are generally higher, then I'm going to say, okay, cool. So I'm going to take my 620 and now I'm going to add some qualitative stuff on top of that. And I'm going to see if I can get away with 700, maybe 800, something like that. Because you don't want to go into this negotiation with a person on the lowest level possible. When I first started out contract consulting, I didn't know any of this stuff. So I just kind of went out there. I went to a website. I saw, okay, cool, people are paying between 550 and 700 at the time. And this was in London. And I just went with 550 and I went straight to the people that I was working with. I was like, cool, my day rate's 550. And they just said, okay, they didn't even negotiate. Now that would be the first sign that you didn't sell yourself effectively, because if somebody doesn't push back, that means that you're a good deal. And yes, it's good to be a good deal, but it's also not to get screwed over, especially it was my own fault in that case. The point being that you want to make sure you understand your rate. You want to understand how rates are actually equated beyond whatever the market dictates. So how do you define your own value? How do you define what's valuable to the end client that you're trying to get through to? But then equally, you need to back all of that stuff up with confidence. You need to have evidence that, okay, you've now built this picture of who you are and how much you're worth. And then you need to have the confidence to deliver this to whoever it is that you're about to speak to. And always understand that objections are normal. Negotiations are going to happen. So if you go in there, always start with a higher number, because then you will end up just a little bit lower, which might be your sweet spot anyway, rather than going in there with the lowest possible number and still getting negotiated down to an even lower number that you just don't want to accept, and then ultimately not getting the role. It's a really loaded question, and there are obviously tons of different ways to set a rate. So I've actually got 2 videos on this, one that discusses pricing models and the different types that you can apply as a consultant or a consulting business, and then another one that kind of breaks down this framework I just covered at a high level if you're a first-time consultant. So be sure to check that out. Question 5, building confidence without decades of experience. So like most things in life, you're not going to magically wake up one day and just feel totally confident and have tons of experience in the thing. So the obvious thing is, how do I go and do this? You need to go and repeat over and over again. Now, there are tons of ways that you can do this in the modern world thanks to AI. For instance, one of the biggest problems that people have now is that they don't know how to do sales calls, but they're too afraid to jump on a sales call with someone in case of failing that sales call. So you see the paradox there. You're never going to gain the experience. But in the modern world, what you can do is you can just hop on to an AI platform. You can give it a task of being this role, whoever your end client is, and you can have a discussion with them. You can also give additional prompts like being a dickhead client or being a hard selling CTO or something like that. Different roles that you can give to this character to role play with, and it's actually really good. Even to this day, after doing tons of sales calls and speaking to hundreds of clients, I still have times where I want to jump on AI just to get something going. If I'm going to start a new project or do something that I've never done before, in order to sound confident with it, I want to make sure that I've done some form of practice or repetition. And you'd be surprised that even if you think, I know everything about whatever it is that I'm doing, as soon as you open up that AI model and it says to you, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? You go, and you freeze. It's the strangest thing ever. So even though you might think you know your thing, the best way to practice is with AI, specifically for sales call in that sense, and maybe some other things that you're doing. But the point being, to answer this question of how do I get all of this confidence without having the experience, is that you need to find ways to practice. And obviously you want to do it without ruining your reputation first. But equally, confidence is partly just mental management. So even if you're not confident, the whole fake it till you make it thing, yes, it's something real, but you still need to be able to handle that pressure when you're faking it. So there's a mental management aspect to this thing that you're trying to do. Confidence obviously comes from doing the thing over and over again, because then it's literally just evidence. It's no longer just a mindset, the word confidence. It's, I've done this before, therefore I know I can do it. But partly when you're trying to fake it, or when you're trying to get these reps in, you still need to handle the pressure of doing the thing that you're doing without having the confidence behind you. Because that's the only way you're going to grow and learn, is if you take on these risks, but then successfully handle navigating through the stress of dealing with it. So I would say the best tips that you can do for this is, 1, use AI as your co-pilot to learn these things, but then 2, learn something like CBT so that you can understand how to manage your thoughts and how to deal with the different levels of confidence that come with playing this game. Question 6, how do I overcome fear of charging premium prices? And that's a 2-part thing. One is your perception and the other is the other person's perception. Now, for your side of things, you need to understand why you feel that way about yourself. So why do you think that you don't deserve a premium rate? Is it because you don't have experience, you don't have certifications, you don't have any idea how to talk to people? All of those things are giving you less confidence in your ability to do the thing. So the first thing that you need to do is understand data about yourself. Get a whole positioning of who you are and what you think objectively you can offer someone. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a gap analysis between what the market or the end client actually wants and what I can currently offer. And if I tick all those boxes that they can offer, then I know objectively that I am valuable to them, in which case I know that the distortion going on in my head right now about whether I'm valuable to someone or not is complete bullshit, and I just need to focus on figuring out ways how to break that bullshit. Because behind that lack of confidence, despite objective data, means that there's something else going on that doesn't actually have anything to do with valuable pricing. So then you start going down that route. But then when it comes to the client side of things, when you understand what's valuable to them, all you need to do is really manipulate their perception. So if you do have all of those things that meet all of their needs, your job now is to turn it into an offer that they feel stupid saying no to. And once you've done that, all you have to do is anchor it to some form of objective value. So for instance, if it saves them $100,000, charging them $15,000 for like a few days work, it's really not a lot of money. That's value-based pricing. They're going to save time. They're going to earn a ton of money on this. So why wouldn't you be able to charge that? Another example of this would be, imagine you were generating stuff for a sales team where you could give them an automated platform that would cut all of their time by 4 hours. It would give them hyper-personalized leads and integrate with any of their systems to send any email hyper-personalized on command. That would be insanely valuable, because even if they closed one of those clients, say that it was worth $900K over 3 years, if you charged $20K for that system, the amount of money that they made on that system would far outweigh the price that you're charging. So again, first fix yourself, understand what you're worth, understand how you can make yourself look even more premium, and then focus on the client and focus on your offer and focus on trying to show them how the thing that you're selling is incredibly valuable. Next up, question 7. Best cold DM template for cloud consultants. So firstly, I wouldn't use my cold network first. I would obviously go to my warm network first. That's the best place to start because it's the least amount of friction. But let's just say you'd already done that and you've exhausted everything. Then if I'm focusing on people I don't know, the first thing I'm going to do is on LinkedIn, I'm going to find people who are second in degree of connection. So third comes last, obviously. If they're second, I'm going to go to the people who know the people that I'm trying to get in touch with and see if they can give me an introduction. And if that absolutely didn't work, then I might piggyback off of something and ask, can I name drop you in reaching out to this person because I see we're a mutual connection? And if that doesn't work and I have to absolutely go to completely cold people, then I'm going to do tons of research about these people. So instead of there being like this DM template where they tell you to do this, offer value here, and the specific placeholders, of course, there's some merit to that, but it's completely useless without doing any research first. So I'm going to take that template and then I'm going to attach all of my research to the template and see that it actually comes across as my own human voice. And the things in the research should probably be things like finding common ground first. Do they do anything outside of work that you could piggyback off on? Do they have a podcast? Do they produce music? Do they write movie scripts and stuff like that? Things that they publicly show online that you can show interest in to spark a conversation with this person. And then instead of just going in there and trying to cram in some imaginary value, I'm going to try and have a human conversation with this person about something that they're focusing on or something that they're doing, something that they've written about, a blog post, something their company's doing, basically anything you can find that's super valuable. Another thing that you can do is you could check out their Trustpilot, you can check out their Google reviews. This is for the company specifically. And you can find out what people are complaining about. And you can lead with something like that in your little template. The point being that with AI around one, you really don't need to be asking questions like what's the best cold DM template, because it can probably make you one depending on your market. The most important thing you can do aside from the templates is understand the framework behind these templates. Why do they work? Why do people suggest them? And if you don't understand that, again, just ask AI, why is this written in the way that it's written? What is actually happening here? But then you also need to understand the importance of researching these people and how to have conversations without actually selling to them. So if you don't understand all of those points, you can check out some of my other videos. But those would be the concepts I would focus on first, as opposed to just looking for the best DM template out there. Because it's really just about having human conversations and then building connections that way. Question 8. How to get your first consulting client in 30 days. So that depends on a lot of things. But one, you don't need to quit your job and only then start looking. You can start looking for these people while you're currently on your job, which means that the first 30 days becomes less super strenuous. But okay, let's say you want to do it in 30 days, regardless of whether you're working or not. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my warm network. Is there anyone who I can speak to directly who can introduce me to someone or knows someone who has a pain point that I can solve? That's the easiest way to do it because there's far less friction and trust is already established. Second, I'm also going to be focusing on finding niche recruiters in the network that I have. So do I have any recruiters who specialize in cybersecurity consulting? Things like that. I'm going to check if they work for reputable companies because you don't want to get burned by people who are just going to ghost you. And the reason that I'm going to do this is because recruiters are incentivized to help place you because it helps them make money. So it's kind of like a two-way working relationship. But again, you need to find the good ones and you need to focus on people who actually want to help you genuinely as opposed to just placing random people on roles. And then three, and this is one of the most important ones, is to focus on boutique consultancies. So these are smaller consultancies, generally with like 2 to up to maybe 100 people. And the reason you want to start with them is because they have faster moving projects, they have faster moving timelines, they're way more flexible than larger consultancies, and they're far more willing to bring on people who are skilled in tech but maybe not the best consultants yet, because they can then train them to be these people that they need them to be at a lower rate, and then they just scale you up that way. The point being is that if you get into a boutique consultancy, no one is really going to turn you away because it helps them augment their own team. For instance, I have a consultancy and people come to me all the time and I read their CVs. If they're great, I'll interview them and I'll say, look, I don't have anything going on right now, but if I do in the future, I'll call on you for a role. It's really that simple. I'm not going to turn away good people to do work for me because I'm going to lose the client. So your best angle is actually going to people where they need you. And that's recruiters because it's a two-way relationship, boutique consultancies because it's a two-way relationship. And even in some cases, your warm leads, it can also be a two-way relationship because that person might get a referral fee. So if you can understand all of these dynamics of consulting, you can see how it's a lot easier to have 3 different types of people all helping find leads for you so that you can increase your chances of finding someone within the first 30 days. But don't feel like you need to go out there and quit your job and just abandon all hope to throw yourself into this deep end. It can work. That's what I did. It was extremely stressful and I didn't know anything about what I just said to you 12 years ago. But the point being is that I still made it and I've got my first client within I think it was about 65 days. It took a bit longer, but again, that came off of knowing absolutely nothing that I know now, which is what I'm hopefully trying to distill to you in all of these videos. And the way that I did all of my leaps in life, we're using these 3 things, with the warm leads and the boutique consultancies being the things that have kept me billable the entire time that I've actually been out there in the wild. Recruiters have always been great to augment times when I didn't have any opportunities in other places, but realistically, I used them as a backup as opposed to the first 2 things that I went to. So focus your attention on what's going to get you the biggest return as fast as possible and then branch out further and further to wherever you have to get the thing that you want. Question 9, how the time flies. What deliverables impress executive buyers? Mostly business outcomes, definitely. But also that's another question where the answer is it depends. It obviously depends on the type of executive that you're speaking to. So there are 3 different camps that I normally see. There's the tech camp, there's the people who have the money, and then there's the managers. And generally they all want different things. So if you're speaking to techie people, they obviously want the best possible technical solution. And they don't really think about the price. Some of them do, but for the most part, they just want the best, most secure system that is going to stop them from breaking compliance or whatever. Then you're going to have the money people, and they obviously only care about their return on investment. They don't want to spend a lot of money, or if they do, they want to get back way more than what they put in or have a result that far outweighs that. And then you have the manager people, and generally they're just focused on getting the ball constantly rolling because they have these targets that they need to hit in order to get their quota and their bonuses and whatever. So all they're really interested in is results. Now, that's not to say that each of these people can't obviously share different traits. Sometimes managers can be technical people and be in charge of money, but a lot of the time they're all separated across different things, depending on the size of the organization. But the point being is that you need to provide different things to each different types of people. You need to satisfy the tech people, the managers people needs, and the money people's needs. And you do that by framing the conversation always towards non-technical people, because the technical people understand both terms. You can use technical phrases and they understand it, and you can talk about stuff in a normal way and they'll still get you. But if you do the opposite, the people who give you the money and the manager people, they don't give a shit about the tech, and most of the time they don't even understand what you're talking about. So always focus to a non-technical audience. Then once you've done that, you want to focus on business outcomes. So whatever business outcome aligns to that specific person. If it's technology, obviously focus on what the outcome the tech is going to bring them. If it's managerial things, show it how the outcome that you're going to give them helps them reach their target faster or better or more securely or cheaper, whatever. And then when it comes down to the money people, you need to show them how the business outcome either saves them time or money or effort, reduces problems that would take money away from them at a later stage. So you can see it's a very varied landscape. So the TLDR of that is that different strokes for different folks. You just want to make sure that the outcome that you're showing them aligns with whatever it is that they find valuable. So you need to understand who they are, what their needs are, what is value to them, and then just show it to them clearly, either in a workshop or a dashboard or something like that. Question 10, our final question. How do consulting retainers actually work? That's a really interesting question, and there are lots of ways that you can do this, but let's just take one basic example. You're going to charge a flat rate for X amount of hours or days a month, and you're going to provide them whatever it is that you tell them you will provide them for that amount of money and that specific time window. And that could be something like delivering them solutions. It could be an advisory kind of thing. It could be fractional CTO. There are tons of different methodologies that you can attach to this. The point being, from your perspective, it needs to be simple and it needs to be scalable, because say you're charging 10K to one client for 2 days a week work. You could essentially take on 3 clients or maybe even 4, depending on how you can juggle their days, and you can see how quickly you can scale to 40 or 50K just by being one person selling fractional time. So it can be super lucrative. And if you're thinking to yourself, how the hell would I juggle that many clients if there are only 7 days in the week? And that's where you have to be really creative. If you look at markets like Israel, they don't work on a Friday, they work on a Sunday. So if you shift your other clients to work on the days that aren't those days, you can then cater for a whole bunch of people by working 6 of your own days a week or 7 of your own days a week, depending on how adventurous you are, without having to overlap days between clients. So you got to think about ways to do that. But then on top of your retainer, you can obviously have your own team behind you. So if you're pretty senior and you know what you're doing and you have this kind of productized methodology about how you deliver your value, you can offer other people who work for you on their own kind of retainer system or time and materials, however you want to do it. And you can pay them a little slice of the pie, and that way you can serve more clients over and over again. The point being is that nothing is really set in stone. A retainer is just someone paying you a bunch of money every month, and you have to give them whatever it is that you promise. What you do beyond that is totally up to you. Get entirely creative with it. Build some awesome pricing models behind it. See if you can stack a team behind you and scale this thing massively. It's one of the most popular ways to actually sell your time nowadays, or a product that you have, or even support. Especially if you're doing AI kind of projects now, offering a retainer as like the end goal after you've implemented a tool or you've done an audit or something like that, after you've trained their team, having a retainer for 1 month to make sure that they have support, or you help them build in the evolving landscape, those kind of things really suit the retainer model. And it's really that simple, guys. You need to get creative with this kind of stuff. But that's all we have time for today, guys. So you can either leave some more comments in the link below. Otherwise, you can check out the long form on the screen now. Or if you want some more personalized support, you can check out my community where I help people build consulting careers every single day. I'll see you guys in the next one.